Think about the brain and how it's built, and then you think about the exact technology that they've used to create AI, isn't it very, very similar? And if so, if it is similar, what does that say about humans' role in the future?
It's similar, but it's not the same, which is why with AI you get what we call jagged intelligence, meaning that it can do something so extraordinarily smart and then in the next moment give an answer that's weird and doesn't make any sense. It's not it thinking like we think. Okay, why? It's because AI, as we think about it now, really started, of course, decades and decades ago, where people said, look, you've got all these billions of cells, neurons in the brain that are connected to each other. What if we ignore all that complexity and we just say, look, imagine that you have units that are connected to each other. We're going to forget about, a single cell in the brain is as complicated as a city. Let's put all that aside. Just imagine it's a circle and it's connected to other cells and each connection has a certain strength. And that's what we call an artificial neural network. Now that went off in its own direction. And the kind of amazing, surprising part is how successful it's been to just get rid of all the detail. But it's still super different than what human brains are like. So just an example, this thing I mentioned at the very beginning about how we're a team of rivals under the hood. You've got all these different competing neural networks that are trying to drive your behavior and so on. The fact that we're emotional, the fact that we are driven by different appetites, whether food or sexuality or whatever it is. But your ChatGPT, you don't want that in the ChatGPT. So it's just an artificial neural network, many layers deep, and it's extraordinary at what it does. For example, the fact that it's read everything on the planet and remembers it. And you haven't. You would need to lead 1,000 lifetimes to read that much. And of course, you wouldn't remember much of it. It's very different is the point I'm making. They both have converged on something that we would call intelligence, but it's a pretty different structure, even though AI was inspired by the brain.
He was telling me that much of the breakthroughs that have made AI what it is today came from understanding how the brain works.
People doing AI, of course, are paying a lot of attention to how this is structured like the brain, because before that, people would do things like probability theory or rules, or they would try to do AI by trying to say, okay, if this, then do that. But when people started doing artificial neural networks, that led to a lot of success. I'm only pointing out that the artificial neural network looks a lot like the brain on the surface. You say, hey, you've got units and you've got connections. But beyond that, there's a lot of differences.
And why are those differences significant as it relates to what's possible?
Because what we've developed is this a new species, essentially, that is incredibly impressive, but it ain't a human brain. It's different than a human brain. There may be all kinds of similarities, things that we even come to understand are similar, but there are so many differences.